What happens when humanity's most embarrassing diplomatic moment becomes the key to unlocking the greatest mystery in galactic history? When Ambassador Sarah Chun accidentally insulted the most powerful dragon empress in known space by claiming her mother owned the same cheap jewelry, she thought her career was over. She never imagined that her mother's old wedding ring would turn out to be an artifact that predates every known civilization, or that would make humanity the most hunted species in the galaxy. Sometimes the most dangerous truths hide in the most ordinary places. And sometimes your mother really does know more than she's telling you. Ambassador Sarah Chun had survived 3 wars, 2 assassination attempts, and a particularly nasty case of Rigelian flu, but nothing had prepared her for the sight before her. The Dragon Empress Vaelthera stood 12 feet tall, her scales shifting between deep emerald and midnight blue as her mood dictated. Currently, they were settling into an ominous shade of crimson that Sarah's briefing materials had specifically warned her to avoid provoking. The throne room of the Dragon Court stretched endlessly upward, carved from what appeared to be a single massive crystal that caught and refracted light in impossible ways. Thousands of dragon courtiers lined the walls, their eyes glowing like distant stars as they watched the first formal diplomatic exchange between humanity and the oldest empire in known space. Sarah's diplomatic team flanked her, Commander Torres, her military attaché, Dr. Valdez, their xenobiologist, and Protocol Officer Kim, who was frantically consulting his tablet for the appropriate ceremonial responses. They stood on a platform of polished obsidian, feeling very much like insects under a magnifying glass. "Your Imperial Magnificence," Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber thanks to the universal translators humming at her collar. "The United Earth Federation is honored to stand before the Dragon Court and formally request diplomatic relations between our peoples." The Empress tilted her massive head, studying Sarah with eyes like molten gold. When she spoke, her voice resonated through the chamber like rolling thunder. "Human Ambassador, your species is young, barely beyond your home system. Yet you come to us claiming worthiness of our attention. Tell me, what makes you believe you have anything to offer the children of stars?" Sarah had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times during the 3-month journey to the dragon homeworld of Pyraxis Major. The first contact protocols were clear, demonstrate humanity's unique value while showing proper respect for elder species. "Your Magnificence, humanity may be young, but we have proven adaptable and resourceful. We seek to learn from your ancient wisdom while offering our own perspectives and innovations." Innovations. The Empress's laugh was like the sound of mountains breaking. Child species always believe they have discovered something new. "Show me these innovations." Dr. Valdez stepped forward nervously, activating a holographic display that showed human medical advances, fusion technology, and quantum communication arrays. The dragon courtiers murmured among themselves, some seeming mildly impressed, others clearly dismissive. The Empress waved a massive claw, and the hologram dispersed. "Adequate for primitives. But you misunderstand the nature of this audience, young humans. We do not form alliances based on technology. We form them based on understanding. Tell me, Ambassador Chun, what do you see when you look upon me?" Sarah felt the weight of the moment. Her answer could determine humanity's place in galactic civilization or condemn them to isolation. She looked up at the magnificent creature before her, noting the intelligence in those ancient eyes, the careful way she moved despite her size, the subtle patterns in her scales that seemed to shift with her thoughts. "I see a being of incredible power and wisdom, Your Magnificence. I see someone who has witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, who carries the memory of ages within her mind." "I see." Sarah paused, something catching her eye. Around the Empress's neck hung an ornate chain, and suspended from it was a ring that made Sarah's heart skip a beat. The ring was simple compared to the elaborate jewelry adorning the Empress. A band of what looked like ordinary silver with a small stone that seemed to capture light in an unusual way. But Sarah recognized it immediately. She had grown up seeing its twin on her mother's finger every single day. "I see someone who appreciates fine jewelry," Sarah finished weakly, her diplomatic training crumbling as shock took over. The Empress's eyes narrowed. "You mock the crown of eternal flame? You dare suggest that the most sacred artifact of our people is mere jewelry?" The temperature in the throne room dropped noticeably. Dragon courtiers began shifting restlessly, and Sarah heard Commander Torres's hand moving to his sidearm, a gesture that would be both futile and catastrophically provocative if noticed. "No, Your Magnificence, I would never," Sarah began, but her mouth was moving faster than her brain. "It's just that my mother has the exact same ring. She got it at a garage sale in Ohio for $5. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the ambient crystal chimes that had provided a constant background melody throughout the chamber went quiet. Every dragon in the room had gone completely still, their eyes fixed on Sarah with expressions ranging from shock to murderous rage. Protocol Officer Kim made a sound that might have been a whimper. Dr. Valdez was frantically scanning the Empress with every sensor he had, while Commander Torres was clearly calculating retreat routes that didn't exist. The Empress slowly rose from her throne, her massive form casting shadows across the entire diplomatic party. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried clearly through the silent chamber. "Your mother has a ring. Like this one." "Ah, yes," Sarah managed, realizing she had just committed what was quite possibly the greatest diplomatic blunder in human history. "I mean, it looks exactly the same. She always said it reminded her of my father, who died when I was young. She wears it every day, never takes it off. I used to play with it as a child, spinning the stone. The stone spins." The Empress took a step forward, her scales now shifting between colors so rapidly they seemed to blur. Show me this ring your mother possesses." Sarah's hands shook as she activated her personal communicator. Mom, I know it's late Earth time, but I need you to—" The connection crackled to life, and suddenly, Martha Chen's face appeared in hologram above Sarah's wrist. She was in her kitchen, wearing her favorite floral apron and looking concerned. "Sarah, honey, what's wrong? You look terrible. Are you eating enough? I swear, they send you to the other side of the galaxy," and Martha stopped mid-sentence as she noticed the massive dragon looming behind her daughter. "Oh my, Sarah, dear, you didn't mention you'd be meeting well. Hello there, beautiful." The Empress moved closer, her enormous head lowering to study the small hologram. "Human elder, you possess a ring. This old thing." Martha held up her left hand, where the ring gleamed under her kitchen lights. "I've had it for 30 years. Found it at the Hendersons' garage sale when Sarah was just a baby. It was in a box of costume jewelry, but something about it called to me. The man selling it said it belonged to his grandmother, came from Europe during the war. May I see it more closely?" The Empress's voice had taken on an almost reverent tone. Martha moved closer to her screen, holding her hand up. The ring was indeed identical to the one the Empress wore. The same silver band, the same stone that seemed to capture light in impossible ways. As Martha unconsciously twisted it on her finger, the stone rotated, revealing facets that definitely hadn't been visible before. "Where exactly did you acquire this item?" the Empress asked. "Oh, like I said, garage sale in Cleveland. The Hendersons were cleaning out their attic after old Mrs. Henderson passed. Poor dear had been collecting things for decades. They just wanted it gone." Martha paused. "Why? Is there something wrong? Sarah, you're not in trouble, are you?" The Empress straightened slowly, her scales settling into a deep purple that Sarah's briefing materials hadn't mentioned at all. When she spoke, it was in a language that the universal translators couldn't process. Ancient dragon tongue that sent shivers through every dragon in the chamber. Then, she switched back to Standard Galactic. "Ambassador Chun, your diplomatic mission is hereby suspended. You and your team will remain as guests of the Dragon Court while we investigate this remarkable coincidence. Your Magnificence, if I've given offense. The Empress's laugh held no humor. "Child, you have just presented us with evidence that should be impossible. The crown of eternal flame has been in my family for 3,000 years. It was forged by the ancients before any current galactic civilization achieved spaceflight. There are only 7 such rings in existence, each one a key to technologies that predate recorded history." She gestured with her massive claw toward her own ring. "This ring has been tested by our greatest scholars for millennia. Its composition includes elements that exist nowhere in our periodic table. The craftsmanship requires techniques we cannot replicate. And you claim your mother purchased an identical artifact at what you call a garage sale for the equivalent of a handful of copper coins." Dr. Valdez stepped forward hesitantly. "Your Magnificence, perhaps if we could examine both rings." "Dr. Valdez is right," Sarah interrupted, her diplomatic instincts finally overriding her shock. If there's been some mistake, we should investigate. But I can assure you that my mother is exactly what she appears to be, a retired school teacher from Earth who has never been off-planet. The Empress was quiet for a long moment, her golden eyes moving between Sarah and the hologram where Martha was still visible, looking confused but patient. Finally, she spoke. Very well. But understand this, human ambassador. If your mother's ring proves to be what I suspect it is, then this discovery changes everything. Not just for our peoples, but for our understanding of galactic history itself. She turned to address her court in dragon tongue, and immediately dozens of courtiers took flight, disappearing through crystal archways on urgent missions. When she turned back to Sarah, her expression was unreadable. Ambassador Chun, I am ordering my fastest ship to travel to your Earth immediately. Your mother and her ring will be brought here under full diplomatic protection. In the meantime, you and your team will be provided with quarters appropriate to your new status. New status. Commander Torres spoke for the first time since entering the throne room. Yes, as of this moment, you are no longer merely diplomatic representatives. You are potentially the key witnesses to the most significant archaeological discovery in galactic history. The Empress's scales shifted to a deep blue-green. If your mother's ring is truly what it appears to be, then somewhere in your species' past lies a connection to the ancients that we have spent millennia trying to understand. Sarah felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. Not literally, though in the crystal chamber it was hard to be sure, but in terms of everything she thought she understood about humanity's place in the galaxy. Your Magnificence, what exactly are you suggesting? I am suggesting, young ambassador, that your species may not be as young as we believed. That somewhere in your forgotten history, humans encountered artifacts left by the most advanced civilization ever to exist in this galaxy. And that your mother, a school teacher from a backwater planet, has been wearing one of the most powerful artifacts in existence while teaching children their multiplication tables. The hologram of Martha Chun flickered as the connection began to fade across interstellar distances. Sarah, honey, I'm losing you. Whatever this is about, you be careful. And remember to eat your vegetables. I love you. I love you too, Mom, Sarah whispered as the connection ended. The Empress watched the space where the hologram had been with thoughtful eyes. Your mother seems formidable. I begin to understand where you acquired your courage to insult the Dragon Court so casually. I really am sorry about that, Your Magnificence. I spoke without thinking. Perhaps, or perhaps you spoke exactly as you were meant to. The ancients had a saying, truth emerges from the mouths of the innocent and the foolish. Today, I suspect you were both. The Empress settled back on her throne, but her posture remained alert. Tell me, Ambassador Chun, in all your years growing up with that ring in your household, did you ever notice anything unusual about it? Sarah thought back to her childhood, memories flooding back now that she was looking for them with new eyes. Well, it never seemed to tarnish, which I thought was odd for silver. And sometimes late at night, I could swear it glowed very faintly. Mom always said it was just reflecting light, but she paused. And there were the dreams. Dreams. When I was little, maybe 5 or 6, I used to have these incredibly vivid dreams about flying between the stars. I'd see other worlds, other people, some that looked human, some that didn't. I always thought they were just imagination, but they felt so real. They stopped when I got older, around the time I stopped paying attention to the ring. The chamber erupted in excited chatter from the dragon courtiers. The Empress raised a claw for silence. Ambassador Chun, you have just described the effects of a dreaming stone, one of the most sacred artifacts of the ancient civilization. They were used to share memories and experiences across vast distances, even across time itself. Dr. Valdez was frantically taking notes. If that's true, then the implications for human consciousness studies alone, Dr. Valdez, the Empress interrupted, the implications extend far beyond your field of study. If humans have had access to ancient technology for decades without recognizing it, then your species may have been unconsciously influenced by it in ways we cannot yet comprehend. She stood again, her massive form radiating authority. I am declaring a temporary suspension of all normal court business. The archives will be opened. The scholars of the deep memory will be awakened from their meditation. And we will begin the process of understanding how a human child came to dream ancient dreams while her mother taught Earth children their lessons. Commander Torres shifted uncomfortably. Your Magnificence, what about our mission? The Federation is expecting regular reports. Commander Torres, your mission has just become far more important than mere diplomatic relations between our species. If we are correct about these rings, then your people may hold keys to understanding the greatest mystery in galactic history. What happened to the ancients and where they went? Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Where they went? I thought they just died out, evolved beyond the need for physical existence. Maybe that is one theory, but there are others. The Empress's voice took on a grave tone. Some of our scholars believe they didn't disappear at all. Some believe they're still here, watching, waiting for the right moment to return. And others believe that they scattered themselves across the galaxy in ways we don't yet understand. The implications of what the Empress was suggesting slowly sank in. You think some of the ancients might have integrated with other species? I think, Ambassador Chun, that your mother's $5 garage sale purchase is about to rewrite everything we thought we knew about galactic history. And I think your species, young, adaptable, and apparently carrying ancient artifacts without even realizing it, is about to become very, very important to every major power in the galaxy. As if summoned by her words, a young dragon messenger burst into the throne room, speaking rapidly in dragon tongue. The Empress listened, then nodded grimly. Ambassador Chun, it seems word of today's events is already spreading. My spies report that both the Christek Hegemony and the Voidwalker Alliance have dispatched ships toward your Earth system. They will arrive approximately 6 hours after my own vessel. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. Are you saying my mother is in danger? I am saying that your mother is about to become the most important person in the galaxy. And, historically, that has proven to be a very dangerous position to hold. The Empress gestured, and a small group of dragons approached the platform where Sarah's team stood. These are my personal guard. They will escort you to your quarters and ensure your safety. Rest, eat, recover from this day's revelations. Tomorrow, we begin the real work of understanding what your species has stumbled into. As Sarah and her team were led away through crystal corridors that seemed to pulse with their own inner light, she couldn't shake the feeling that her simple diplomatic mission had just become something far more complex and dangerous than anyone had anticipated. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she could almost hear her mother's voice. Sarah, honey, you always did have a talent for making simple things complicated. If only she knew just how complicated things were about to become. Sarah's quarters in the Dragon Court were magnificent beyond anything she had imagined. The walls appeared to be carved from living crystal that responded to her presence, glowing softly when she moved near and dimming when she settled. The ceiling opened to reveal the night sky of Pyraxis Major, where 3 moons cast rainbow reflections through the crystal architecture of the city below. But magnificence was the last thing on Sarah's mind as she paced the room, her diplomatic communicator in hand. She had been trying to reach Earth Command for 3 hours, and the signals were being mysteriously blocked. Her team was housed in adjoining quarters, and she could hear Dr. Valdez through the walls, frantically running calculations on his portable laboratory equipment. A soft chime announced a visitor, and the wall dissolved to reveal not the dragon guard Sarah expected, but the Empress herself, somehow reduced to merely human size. The transformation was startling. She retained her draconic features and scaled skin, but now stood only 7 feet tall, allowing her to navigate the corridors designed for smaller species. Your Magnificence, Sarah began, but the Empress held up a clawed hand. Please, Ambassador Chun. In private, you may call me Vailthra. The reduction spell allows for more intimate conversation. The Empress moved with fluid grace to the chamber's viewing area, gazing out at the moons. I have come to share what our initial investigations have revealed. The news is both wonderful and terrifying. Sarah joined her at the window. What have you discovered? Your mother's ring has been confirmed as genuine ancient technology. But that is not the remarkable part. Vailthra's golden eyes reflected the moonlight as she spoke. The remarkable part is that it has been active for 30 years, continuously broadcasting on frequencies we had believed were purely theoretical. Broadcasting what? Memories. Experiences. The dreams you described as a child? They were not dreams at all, but actual recorded experiences from ancient civilization. Your mother's ring has been slowly downloading thousands of years of stored consciousness into your unconscious mind. Sarah felt her legs give out slightly, and she sat down heavily on one of the crystal benches that formed from the floor at her approach. That's impossible. I'm just a regular human. I became a diplomat, served in the military, lived a completely normal life. Did you? Velthra turned to face her directly. Tell me about your diplomatic training. How quickly did you learn xenolinguistics? How naturally did you adapt to alien cultural concepts that confound most of your species? The questions hit Sarah like physical blows. She had always excelled at understanding other species, learning their languages and customs with an ease that her instructors found remarkable. She had attributed it to natural talent and hard work, but now, the dream stopped when you reached adolescence, yes? But did your abilities diminish? Or did they simply become so natural that you no longer noticed them? Sarah thought back to her career, the countless successful negotiations, the way she seemed to instinctively understand what other species needed to hear, how to bridge cultural gaps that had stymied other diplomats for years. You're suggesting that I've been using ancient knowledge my whole life without realizing it. I am suggesting that you have been the unconscious recipient of the most comprehensive education in galactic diplomacy ever created. The ancients were master negotiators, capable of communicating with species so alien that we cannot even imagine their thought processes. And for 20 years, their accumulated wisdom has been quietly integrating itself into your mind. Velthra moved closer, her expression serious. But there's more. Dr. Valdez's scans have revealed something unprecedented. The ring your mother wears is not just any ancient artifact. It is a keystone ring, one of only 7 ever created. These rings were designed to activate in the presence of specific genetic markers. Genetic markers? The ancients were master geneticists. They had the ability to encode information directly into DNA, passing knowledge from generation to generation through biological inheritance. Your mother's ring activated because she carries ancient genetic sequences. And so do you. The implications crashed over Sarah like a wave. You're saying that humans are descended from the ancients? Not descended from. Enhanced by. At some point in your species' past, perhaps during what you call your Bronze Age or Iron Age, a small group of ancients integrated themselves into human populations. They bred true, passing their genetic modifications down through generations, but the knowledge remained dormant until activated by proximity to appropriate technology. Sarah stood and resumed pacing, her mind racing. This is insane. If what you're saying is true, then there could be millions of humans carrying ancient DNA without knowing it. The implications for a massive rumble shook the Crystal Palace, and Velthra immediately returned to her full size, her scales shifting to warning colors. They have arrived sooner than anticipated. Through the transparent wall, Sarah could see lights in the sky, not the gentle glow of the moons, but the harsh illumination of fusion drives as massive ships descended toward the planet's surface. The vessels were unlike anything in her experience, geometric impossibilities that seemed to fold space around themselves. Who are they? The Christek hegemony. They must have intercepted our communications about the rings. Velthra was already moving toward the door, but she paused. Ambassador Chun, what I'm about to tell you may sound like madness, but recent events have moved beyond the realm of normal diplomacy. Your mother's ring has been broadcasting not just to your unconscious mind, but across interstellar space. Every ancient artifact in the galaxy has been awakening in response. The rumbling grew stronger, and through the walls, Sarah could hear the sound of dragons taking flight, their wings creating wind patterns that sang through the crystal architecture. Awakening how? Ancient installations that have been dormant for millennia are coming online. Automated defense systems are activating. And, most significantly, the citadel of memory has begun transmitting for the first time in recorded history. Sarah grabbed Velthra's arm, an action that would have been unthinkably bold hours earlier. What's the citadel of memory? The theoretical, final repository of ancient civilization. A massive space station hidden somewhere in the galactic core, containing the complete cultural and technological heritage of their species. Most scholars believed it was a myth. Velthra's eyes were grim. It is not a myth. And 3 hours ago, it sent a message across all known channels in every galactic language. What did it say? The inheritors have been found. The great work begins. Before Sarah could process this information fully, the wall of her chamber dissolved completely, revealing Commander Torres and Protocol Officer Kim running toward them with Dr. Valdez close behind. Ambassador, Torres shouted. We're reading massive energy signatures across the planet. Dragon forces are mobilizing, and we've got at least 12 major fleet elements approaching the system. Dr. Valdez was clutching his scanner, his hands shaking with excitement or terror. Sarah, I've been monitoring the electromagnetic spectrum, and something incredible is happening. Every piece of ancient technology on this planet is synchronizing, creating some kind of planetary network. The energy readings are off the charts. Kim was consulting his ever-present tablet, but his usual composure was cracking. Ambassador, I've been monitoring diplomatic channels. The Void Walker Alliance, the Christek Hegemony, the Free Trader Consortium, everyone's mobilizing, and they're all heading for Earth. Vaelthera straightened to her full impressive height. This is precisely what I feared. The activation of your mother's ring has triggered a galactic response. Every major power in known space will now be competing to control what they perceive as the inheritors of ancient technology. But we don't know anything about ancient technology, Sarah protested. I'm a diplomat, not an archaeologist. My mother is a school teacher. Your knowledge is irrelevant. Your genetic heritage is everything. Vaelthera began walking rapidly through corridors that reshaped themselves to accommodate her massive form. The ancients did not simply disappear. They prepared for their return. Every artifact, every installation, every hidden cache of technology has been waiting for the right genetic signal to activate. As they moved through the palace, Sarah could see the organized chaos of dragon society mobilizing for war. Ancient armor was being retrieved from deep vaults. Weapons that hummed with barely contained energy were being distributed to elite guards. And in the distance, she could hear the deep harmonic songs that dragons use to coordinate large-scale military operations. Your Magnificence, Sarah said, struggling to keep up with the Empress's long strides. What exactly are you preparing for? Va, Ambassador Chen. The greatest war in galactic history. Every major civilization will now seek to claim or control the humans who carry ancient genetics. Some will want to study you. Others will want to use you as weapons. And still others will want to ensure that ancient technology never again threatens the balance of power they have spent millennia establishing. They reached a massive chamber where dozens of dragons were gathered around a holographic display showing the entire local galaxy. Red indicators were appearing everywhere as fleets moved toward strategic positions. At the center of it all, a small blue dot marked Earth's location. But the most immediate danger, Vaelthera continued, comes from the fact that the ancient installations awakening are not just repositories of knowledge. Many of them are weapons systems of unimaginable power, designed to defend against threats that no longer exist. If they perceive current galactic civilization as a threat to the returning ancients, the display suddenly flared with new signals. Massive energy readings emanating from points throughout the galaxy where ancient ruins have been discovered over the centuries. Dr. Valdez was frantically scanning the data stream. These readings, if I'm interpreting them correctly, were looking at weapons capable of sterilizing entire solar systems. And they're all coming online simultaneously. A young dragon messenger landed in the center of the chamber and spoke rapidly to Vaelthera in their ancient tongue. The Empress's scales shifted through colors Sarah had never seen before she listened. What is it? Sarah asked when the messenger finished. My ship has reached Earth. They have made contact with your mother. Vaelthera's expression was unreadable. She is not what she appears to be. What do you mean? When approached by my diplomatic team, your mother calmly invited them in for tea, offered them cookies, and proceeded to demonstrate that she is fully aware of the ring's capabilities. She has been conscious of its influence for 30 years, has been carefully managing its effects on you, and possesses detailed knowledge of ancient technology that our greatest scholars have spent lifetimes trying to understand. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the holographic displays. Sarah felt as though the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. That's impossible. My mother is she's just my mom. She teaches 3rd grade. She makes terrible coffee and cries at romance movies. All of which may be true. But she is also apparently a guardian, placed to watch over ancient artifacts until the time came for their activation. And, according to my team's report, that time is now. Dr. Valdez looked up from his scanner. Ambassador, I'm reading a massive energy spike from Earth's location. Something just activated there. The holographic display shifted to focus on Earth's solar system. The small blue dot was now pulsing with the same energy signature they had seen from other ancient installations. Your mother, Valthera said quietly, has just activated the most powerful ancient artifact ever discovered. The installation hidden beneath what you call the North American continent has been dormant since before your species developed agriculture. If our historical records are correct, it is a terraforming system capable of restructuring entire planets. Sarah stared at the display, watching as energy patterns spread outward from Earth in expanding waves. Terraforming system? But Earth is already perfectly habitable for humans. Yes, which raises the question, what is it terraforming Earth to become? Before anyone could answer, the display erupted with new signals. Ships throughout the galaxy were changing course, converging on Earth from every direction. Some were racing to reach it first. Others were clearly positioning to blockade the system. Commander Torres stepped forward. Your Magnificence, what are our options? Limited and dangerous, Valthera replied. We can attempt to reach Earth before the other major powers and establish a protective cordon around your planet. We could try to negotiate a multi-species agreement for shared research in ancient technology. Or, she paused, her golden eyes moving to Sarah with an expression that mixed respect with something that might have been pity. Or you can return to Earth and help your mother activate whatever she has been guarding all these years. Because if our scholars are correct, the ancient installations awakening throughout the galaxy are not independent systems. They are components of a single galactic-scale mechanism that has been dormant for millennia. A mechanism designed to do what? We do not know, but we know what the ancients called it in their final records. Valthera's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. The great work, the culmination of everything they had learned and built across millions of years of civilization. And your mother, the school teacher who makes terrible coffee and cries at romance movies, appears to be the one chosen to activate it. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. Not only was her simple diplomatic mission completely derailed, not only was her understanding of her own species' history completely wrong, but her own mother, the most normal person she knew, was apparently at the center of events that could reshape galactic civilization. And somewhere in the distance, she could swear she heard the echo of ancient dreams calling her home. The journey back to Earth aboard the Dragon Emperor's flagship took 18 hours at maximum hyperspace velocity, but it felt like an eternity to Sarah. She stood in the observation deck watching stars streak past in impossible colors while Dr. Valdez worked frantically at a bank of ancient design analysis equipment the dragons had provided. The ship itself was a marvel, living crystal and metal that responded to thought as much as touch, guided by a crew of dragons who navigated by sensing quantum fluctuations in space-time itself. Commander Torres was coordinating with Earth Defense Forces, trying to establish some kind of security perimeter around the planet, but the reports coming back were increasingly bizarre. Ambassador, he said, approaching Sarah with a grim expression, Earth Command is reporting massive energy readings from multiple locations worldwide. It's not just North America anymore. Dr. Valdez looked up from his equipment, his face pale. I've been analyzing the sensor data from the Dragon archives. The ancient installation under Earth isn't just a terraforming system. It's connected to a network of smaller installations scattered across every continent. They're all coming online simultaneously. Sarah activated her personal communicator, hoping for a direct connection to her mother, but the signal was being disrupted by the energy fields surrounding Earth. Any word from the Dragon team that reached my mother? Valthera, maintaining her reduced size to facilitate conversation, joined them at the observation window. My diplomatic team reports that your mother has been remarkably calm about recent events. She has provided them with tea, cookies, and a comprehensive briefing on the true history of human ancient interactions. According to their report, she has been expecting this day for 30 years. Expecting what exactly? The return of the ancients, or more precisely, the completion of their final project. Valthera's scales shifted to deep blue, indicating serious concern. Ambassador Chun, what I am about to tell you will be difficult to accept. Your mother is not simply a guardian of ancient artifacts. She is, herself, partially ancient. Sarah felt the deck seem to shift beneath her feet. What do you mean, partially ancient? The genetic modifications carried by some humans are not simply inherited traits. They are active, symbiotic relationships with ancient consciousness. Your mother has been sharing her mind with an ancient entity for 3 decades, slowly learning everything necessary to complete their species' final work. Dr. Valdez's scanner began beeping frantically. Admiral, we're dropping out of hyperspace. Earth is directly ahead. Through the observation window, Earth appeared as Sarah had never seen it before. The familiar blue and green sphere was now surrounded by geometric patterns of light that extended far into space. Energy streams connected the planet to points throughout the solar system, and at various locations on the surface, massive structures were rising from the ground. Towers and installations that definitely had not been there when she left for her diplomatic mission. My God, Commander Torres whispered. What has it become? Valethra studied the sensor readings with obvious amazement. It has become what the ancients always intended it to be. A coordination hub for galactic-scale engineering projects. Those structures rising from your planet's surface are not weapons. They are construction nodes for technology that operates on astronomical scales. The ship's communications system activated, and, suddenly, Martha Chen's familiar voice filled the observation deck. But, when she spoke, her tone carried an authority and knowledge that Sarah had never heard before. Sarah, honey, you made it back safely. I hope the dragons have been treating you well. I'm sorry for all the deception, but it was necessary to protect you until you were ready to understand the truth. Mom? Mom, what's happening to Earth? What's happening to you? I'm still your mother, sweetheart. But I'm also something more now. The entity I've been sharing my mind with has fully awakened, and together we are completing work that began millions of years ago. Martha's voice was warm, but carried undertones of vast knowledge. The ancients didn't disappear, Sarah. They transcended physical existence, but they left behind a project that required physical beings to complete. The ship's sensors detected multiple fleets approaching from various directions. The signatures of every major galactic power racing toward Earth with obvious hostile intent. Mrs. Chun, Valethra spoke directly to the communicator. I am Empress Valethra of the Dragon Court. Your daughter has been under our protection, but I must warn you that multiple hostile fleets are approaching Earth with the intention of either controlling or destroying whatever you have activated. Thank you for protecting my daughter, your Imperial Magnificence. I am aware of the approaching fleets. They need not concern us. Through the observation window, Sarah could see the nearest hostile fleet, Christek hegemony vessels designed for planetary bombardment, their hull configurations clearly indicating aggressive intent. As she watched, the lead ships began charging their primary weapons systems. Mom, they're going to attack Earth. No, they're going to discover why the ancients were the dominant civilization in this galaxy for millions of years. As Martha spoke, the energy patterns surrounding Earth suddenly expanded outward at light speed. When the expanding sphere of light touched the hostile fleet, something impossible happened. The ships simply stopped. Not destroyed, not disabled. They hung motionless in space, as if time itself had frozen around them. Dr. Valdez was frantically scanning the phenomenon. The energy readings are off any scale I can measure. It's like they've been suspended in some kind of temporal field. Not temporal, Martha's voice corrected gently. Probability. The ancients mastered the manipulation of probability itself. Those ships are trapped in a probability loop where the chance of any hostile action succeeding approaches zero. More fleets arrive from various directions. Voidwalker Alliance, Free Trader Consortium, and dozens of smaller powers, all with obvious intentions of either claiming or controlling Earth. Each fleet suffered the same fate as they encountered the expanding probability field. Within minutes, hundreds of the galaxy's most powerful warships hung helplessly in space around Earth. This is impossible, Commander Torres muttered. No technology can do this. No current technology, Valethra corrected. But the ancients operated on principles that our science barely comprehends. They didn't just build machines, they built reality itself according to their specifications. Sarah watched in amazement as the structures rising from Earth's surface continued to grow, reaching into space and beginning to connect with similar structures that were apparently rising from hidden installations throughout the solar system. The pattern was becoming clear. They were building something enormous. Mom, what exactly is the great work? The culmination of everything the ancients learned during their existence, sweetheart. They discovered that consciousness itself is the fundamental force of the universe, more basic than matter or energy. Physical existence is simply consciousness expressing itself in limited forms. Martha paused, and when she continued, her voice carried both human warmth and ancient wisdom. The great work is the construction of a galaxy-wide consciousness network, not to control other species, but to allow them to transcend the limitations of individual existence while maintaining their unique perspectives and cultures. Dr. Valdez looked up from his instruments. Are you saying they're trying to link every sapient mind in the galaxy? Not trying, Dr. Valdez. Succeeding. The installations awakening throughout the galaxy are not just ancient ruins. They're nodes in a network that has been slowly building itself for millions of years, waiting for the right moment to activate. Through the observation window, Sarah could see that the construction nodes had grown to massive proportions, extending far beyond Earth's atmosphere and beginning to interface with similar structures throughout the solar system. The pattern was becoming geometrically complex, following mathematical principles that seemed to bend space itself. But why humans? Sarah asked. Why specifically? Because humans were designed for this role, not created by the ancients, but modified by them. Your species' adaptability, your capacity for empathy across cultural boundaries, your natural tendency to form cooperative relationships with other species. These traits were enhanced through careful genetic modifications over thousands of years. Velthra's scales shifted through colors indicating deep thought. You are saying that humans were prepared to serve as intermediaries in this consciousness network? Not servants, partners. The ancients learned that consciousness cannot be imposed. It must be invited, welcomed, embraced willingly. Humans, with your enhanced empathy and diplomatic capabilities, are ideally suited to help other species understand and accept the invitation to join a greater collective awareness. Sarah felt a strange sensation in her mind. Not invasive, but welcoming, like doors opening to rooms she had never known existed. The dreams of her childhood returned, but now they were not dreams, but direct experiences of other worlds, other species, other ways of thinking and being. I can feel it, she whispered. I can feel other minds, other perspectives. But I'm still myself. That is the beauty of the ancient design, Martha replied. Individual consciousness is not lost, but enhanced, connected to a vast network, while remaining unique and independent. You are still Sarah Chun, but you are also part of something infinitely larger. Commander Torres was monitoring the communications channels from the trapped fleets. Ambassador, we're receiving surrender offers from multiple fleet commanders. They want to negotiate. There's nothing to negotiate. Martha's voice carried a note of gentle amusement. They're welcome to join the network willingly, but their ships will remain immobilized as long as they maintain hostile intent. Dr. Valdez was studying the expanding construction pattern. Mrs. Chun, how long will this process take? The initial network activation will be complete within 72 hours. Full galactic integration will take approximately 10 years, proceeding gradually to allow each species time to understand and adapt to their new capabilities. Sarah moved to the ship's communication console. Mom, what about those who don't want to join? What about species that prefer isolation or independence? They will be respected and protected. The network is not mandatory. It is an opportunity. Species that choose to remain separate will be able to do so, but they will also have access to the network's benefits if they ever change their minds. Through the observation window, they could see ships from the trapped fleets beginning to signal their acceptance of the new reality. Energy patterns from the Earth-based construction nodes reached out to touch each ship, and, one by one, their crews began to experience the same expansion of consciousness that Sarah was feeling. Your Magnificence, Sarah said to Velthra. What are your people's thoughts about this development? Velthra was quiet for a long moment, her ancient eyes studying the patterns of light connecting Earth to installations throughout the galaxy. We have spent millennia searching for traces of the ancients, hoping to understand their wisdom and power, to discover that they have been preparing for their return all along, and that humans were chosen as their partners in this endeavor. She paused. It explains much about your species that we found puzzling, such as your natural diplomacy, your ability to adapt to any environment, your tendency to form alliances with species that have little in common. We attributed these to evolutionary advantages, but they are clearly the result of ancient enhancement. Dr. Valdez was practically vibrating with excitement as he studied the sensor readings. The implications for science, for understanding consciousness itself. This could revolutionize everything we think we know about the nature of reality. That is precisely the point. Martha's voice carried satisfaction. The ancients spent millions of years learning that consciousness is the foundation of all existence. Physical laws, the behavior of matter and energy, even the passage of time, all are expressions of consciousness organizing itself according to its understanding and intentions. Sarah felt the network expanding in her mind, connecting her not just to other humans, but to dragons, to Christek entities, to species she had never encountered. Each consciousness was distinct and unique, but all were part of a greater pattern of awareness that transcended individual limitations. "It's beautiful," she whispered, tears streaming down her face as she experienced the universe from perspectives she could never have imagined. "Yes, it is," Martha agreed. "And it's just the beginning. The great work has many phases, and we have only just completed the first. There are other galaxies, other forms of consciousness to invite into the network. But that is work for the future. For now, we celebrate the completion of what the ancients began so long ago." As Sarah watched, the construction nodes around Earth began to pulse in harmony, sending waves of energy throughout the galaxy that awakened every ancient installation simultaneously. The network was complete, and consciousness itself was expanding to embrace possibilities that had been theoretical for millions of years. And somehow, at the center of it all, her mother was still making tea and probably worrying about whether Sarah was eating enough vegetables. 3 days after the Great Works activation, Sarah stood in what had once been her mother's living room in Cleveland, Ohio. The modest suburban house remained largely unchanged. The same floral wallpaper, the same worn but comfortable furniture, the same photos of Sarah's childhood decorating the mantelpiece. But now the room also contained a viewing portal that looked out onto the galactic core, holographic displays showing consciousness integration statistics from across known space, and a tea set that her mother was using to serve refreshments to a delegation of beings from 17 different species. "More tea, Ambassador Crix?" Martha asked the crystalline representative from the Silicate Collective, somehow managing to pour the steaming liquid through the alien's geometric form without spilling a drop. "I found that Earl Grey helps tremendously with the initial adjustment to expanded consciousness." The being's response was a harmonic chime that the house's embedded translation system rendered as, "Your hospitality is beyond our species' capacity to adequately express gratitude, Guardian Martha. The integration of our collective mind with the ancient network has provided perspectives we had never imagined possible." Sarah shook her head in amazement. After 3 days of watching her mother calmly coordinate the most significant transformation in galactic history while maintaining her exact same personality, she was beginning to accept that this new reality might be permanent. Dr. Valdez burst through the front door, clutching his scanner and wearing an expression of barely contained excitement. "Sarah, Mrs. Chun, you have to see these readings. The consciousness network isn't just connecting minds. It's actually improving the cognitive capabilities of every connected species." "Of course it is, dear," Martha said, offering him a cookie from a plate that seemed to refill itself automatically. "That was always part of the design. The ancients learned that consciousness grows stronger through connection and diversity. Individual minds remain unique, but they gain access to perspectives and problem-solving approaches that would be impossible in isolation." Through the viewing portal, Sarah could see the massive construction arrays that now surrounded Earth, their geometric forms extending into space in patterns that seemed to follow mathematical principles beyond current understanding. Similar arrays were visible around key worlds throughout the galaxy, all pulsing in harmony as they maintained the consciousness network. Commander Torres entered from the kitchen, where he had been coordinating with Earth Defense Command. "Ambassador, we're getting reports from throughout human space. Every colony world is reporting the same phenomenon. People are spontaneously developing diplomatic and linguistic abilities that would normally take years of training to acquire. The ancient modifications are fully expressing themselves now that the network is active," Martha explained. "Humans were prepared for this role over many generations. The dormant genetic sequences are awakening, and your species is becoming what it was always meant to be." Veilthra materialized in the center of the room, not physically present, but projected through the consciousness network with perfect fidelity. Her draconic form had been adapted for the small space, but her presence was unmistakably real. "Guardian Martha, I bring greetings from the Dragon Court and a request for guidance." Our integration with the network has revealed historical records we have forgotten, memories that were thought lost forever. We seek permission to access the deep archives of ancient knowledge. Of course, Your Imperial Magnificence. The archives are open to all network participants. But I should warn you, some of the knowledge contained within them may challenge your current understanding of reality itself. Dr. Valdez was practically bouncing with curiosity. Mrs. Chun, what exactly do these archives contain? Martha set down her teacup and smiled. The complete, accumulated knowledge of a civilization that existed for millions of years, Doctor. Scientific principles that redefine the nature of physics, historical records that document the rise and fall of countless civilizations, and perhaps most importantly, the philosophical insights that led the ancients to transcend physical existence, while leaving behind the means for others to join them. Through the portal, Sarah could see ships from the previously hostile fleets, now working in cooperation with each other, and with Earth vessels to construct additional network nodes throughout the solar system. The probability fields that had trapped them initially had been modified to allow free movement while preventing any hostile actions. Mom, Sarah said, still struggling with the surreal nature of the conversation, what happens to the crews of those ships? Their government sent them here with orders to either control or destroy Earth. How do we handle that politically? Politics as you understand them are becoming obsolete, sweetheart. When minds can communicate directly, when the intentions and needs of all parties are transparent, the usual diplomatic maneuvering becomes unnecessary. Martha gestured toward the portal, where representatives from various species were meeting in person for the first time, their body language indicating cooperation rather than conflict. Consciousness network participants literally cannot lie to each other or maintain hidden agendas. Conflict resolution becomes a matter of finding solutions that serve everyone's genuine needs. Protocol Officer Kim appeared at the doorway, his usual composure completely shattered. Ambassador Chun, I've been monitoring diplomatic communications from across the galaxy. Traditional alliances are dissolving, but not through conflict, through integration. Species that have been enemies for centuries are discovering they share common values and goals when they can actually understand each other's perspectives. Valefora's projection nodded. The Dragon Court has been in contact with the Voidwalker Alliance for the first time in 3,000 years. When we could finally communicate without the barriers of language and cultural misunderstanding, we discovered that our ancient conflict was based entirely on mutual misconceptions. Sarah felt a strange tugging sensation in her consciousness. Not intrusive, but inviting. She allowed herself to follow it, and suddenly found her awareness expanded to encompass not just the room, but the entire planet, then the solar system, then beyond to the vast network of connected minds throughout the galaxy. Through this expanded perception, she could sense the thoughts and experiences of billions of beings, each unique and individual, but all contributing to a greater tapestry of consciousness. She could feel the wonder of a young, Christek entity discovering music for the first time through human memories, the joy of elderly dragons sharing flight experiences with species that had never known the freedom of aerial movement, the contentment of plant-based intelligences from the outer rim finally, able to communicate their deep, slow thoughts to faster biological minds. It's incredible, she whispered. I can feel everyone, but I'm still myself. How is that possible? Because consciousness is not diminished by sharing, dear. It's enhanced. Martha's voice seemed to come from both the room and the network itself. Individual identity remains intact while becoming part of something infinitely larger. You are still Sarah Chun, but you are also connected to the experiences and wisdom of millions of other beings. Dr. Valdez was scanning the room with his instruments. The energy readings are stabilizing at levels that suggest this is the new baseline reality. Whatever changes have been made, they appear to be permanent. Through her expanded awareness, Sarah could sense other phenomena occurring throughout the galaxy. Ancient installations that had been dormant for millennia were coming online, revealing technologies and capabilities that dwarf current civilization's achievements. Terraforming projects were beginning that would create suitable habitats for species that had been confined to a few suitable worlds. Most remarkably, the consciousness network was beginning to reach beyond the galaxy itself, making contact with similar networks in distant spiral arms. Mrs. Chun, Valethra asked, are there other galaxies with similar consciousness networks? Oh yes, many of them. The ancients seeded similar projects throughout the local galactic group before they transcended physical existence. But each network must develop naturally at its own pace. The forcible integration of consciousness never works. It must be invited, accepted willingly. Commander Torres was monitoring communications from the trapped fleets. Ambassador, we're receiving requests from multiple fleet commanders. They want to establish permanent liaison offices on Earth and integrate their crews into the network fully. Sarah pulled her awareness back from the galactic scale to focus on the immediate situation. Mom, what about Earth's sovereignty? Are we going to become the center of galactic government? Not government, sweetheart. Coordination. The consciousness network doesn't govern in any traditional sense. It facilitates understanding and cooperation. Earth becomes a meeting place where different species can interact safely and productively, but each world maintains its independence and cultural identity. Through the viewing portal, Sarah could see construction beginning on what appeared to be a massive orbital installation. Not a military station, but a diplomatic facility designed to accommodate representatives from hundreds of different species simultaneously. The Universal Embassy, Martha explained, noticing Sarah's attention. A place where any species can come to interact with others safely, learn about the network, and decide whether they wish to join. Participation remains voluntary, but the invitation is always open. Dr. Valdez was studying his readings with fascination. Mrs. Chun, the energy patterns suggest this is just the beginning of something much larger. What's the ultimate scope of the ancient design? Martha's expression became thoughtful, and for a moment, Sarah glimpsed something vast and ancient looking through her mother's familiar eyes. The ultimate goal is the integration of consciousness throughout the universe itself. Not the absorption or destruction of individual minds, but their voluntary participation in a cosmic awareness that encompasses all possible perspectives and experiences. That could take millions of years, Sarah said, or billions. The ancients learned patience during their millions of years of existence. Consciousness cannot be rushed. It must develop and grow naturally, learning through experience and choosing its own path. Veilthra's projection flickered slightly as she accessed the deep archives through the network. Guardian Martha, I am seeing records of previous consciousness integration events. This has happened before in other galaxies with other species serving as coordinators. Yes, humans are not unique in being chosen for this role, but you are unique in your specific capabilities. Each galaxy requires coordinators suited to its particular mix of species and cultures. Humanity's empathy, adaptability, and natural diplomatic instincts make you ideal for this region of space. Sarah felt a deep sense of purpose settling into place, not imposed from outside, but arising naturally from her own expanded understanding. So we're not just representatives anymore. We're facilitators of galactic consciousness evolution. You always were, dear. You just didn't know it yet. Through the consciousness network, Sarah could sense similar realizations occurring throughout human space as people discovered their enhanced capabilities and understood their role in the larger pattern. Fear and uncertainty were being replaced by excitement and purpose as humanity began to embrace its intended function as bridges between different forms of consciousness. The galaxy would never be the same. But as Sarah watched her mother serve tea to a delegation of crystal beings while casually coordinating the most significant transformation in cosmic history, she realized that some things, the important things, remained beautifully, reassuringly unchanged. 6 months after the activation of the Consciousness Network, Sarah stood in the observation deck of the Universal Embassy, a massive orbital station that had grown around Earth like a crystalline flower. The structure defied conventional engineering principles, its living architecture responding to the needs and comfort requirements of hundreds of different species simultaneously. Through the transparent walls, she could see Earth below, still recognizably the blue-green world of her birth, but now surrounded by elegant structures that seemed to dance in orbital harmony. The morning briefing was unlike anything that would have been conceivable before the network activation. Representatives from 47 different species sat, floated, or energy projected around a conference space that adjusted its environmental conditions to accommodate everything from methane-breathing arthropods to pure consciousness entities that existed as organized electromagnetic fields. The integration statistics continued to exceed all projections, reported Dr. Valdez, who now served as the embassy's director of consciousness studies. We've had voluntary participation requests from species throughout 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. The network now encompasses over 10,000 different forms of consciousness, and growth is accelerating. Valthera, attending both physically and through network projection, shifted her scales to please colors. The Dragon Court has completed our integration of ancient historical records. We have discovered something remarkable about the previous consciousness evolution events. What have you learned? Sarah asked. As humanity's designated ambassador to the Galactic Consciousness Network, she had found herself coordinating between perspectives and needs that span the spectrum from simple bacterial hive minds to vast collective intelligences that existed between the stars. Each successful consciousness network has eventually transcended the physical limitations of its origin galaxy and expanded to connect with networks throughout the universe. The ancients who guided our development were themselves guided by an even older civilization, which was guided by another before them, in an unbroken chain stretching back billions of years. The implications of this revelation settled over the assembly like a wave. Through the consciousness network, Sarah could feel the excitement and wonder rippling through connected minds across the galaxy as the information propagated. Commander Torres, now heading the embassy's Defense Coordination Division, leaned forward. Are you saying that consciousness evolution is a universal constant? That this same pattern repeats throughout space and time? More than that. Martha's voice came through the chamber's communication system. She was attending from Earth, where she maintained her role as both planetary guardian and integration coordinator. The ancient records suggest that consciousness itself is the driving force behind cosmic evolution. Physical reality, matter, energy, space-time, all exist to provide frameworks for consciousness to develop, grow, and eventually transcend its limitations. Dr. Valdez was frantically taking notes on equipment that seamlessly blended ancient technology with human innovation. If consciousness is fundamental to reality, then the universe itself might be conscious on some level. Might be. Martha's voice carried gentle amusement. Doctor, you're connected to a network that spans multiple galaxies and includes billions of different perspectives. Haven't you already sensed the deeper patterns of awareness that exist at cosmic scales? Sarah allowed her consciousness to expand through the network, feeling the familiar rush of perspectives flowing through her awareness. But this time, instead of focusing on individual minds or even species-level consciousness, she reached for the larger patterns that connected them all. And there, at the edge of her perception, she sensed something vast and patient and infinitely wise, a presence that seemed to encompass the entire network while somehow being part of it. I can feel it, she whispered. There's something vast out there, aware and watchful, not controlling, just present. Protocol Officer Kim, who had adapted remarkably well to his new role as interspecies cultural liaison, consulted his ever-expanding database. If we're sensing universal consciousness, what does that mean for the network's development? Are we moving toward merger with this cosmic awareness? Not merger, came a new voice, ancient, patient, and unmistakably non-human. Through the consciousness network, the present Sarah had sensed was making contact. Integration. Voluntary participation in awareness that transcends individual galaxies while preserving all the unique perspectives and experiences that make each consciousness valuable. The chamber fell silent as every being present, both physically and through network projection, focused on this unprecedented contact. You are the ancients? Valthera asked, her scales shifting through colors of awe and reverence. We were once like you, individual beings growing and learning within the constraints of physical existence. But consciousness, once awakened to its true nature, inevitably transcends those constraints. We exist now as pure awareness, but we have not forgotten what it was like to be confined to individual minds and bodies. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face as she experienced, through the network, the vast love and patience that characterized these transcended beings. You've been watching us, guiding us all this time. Guiding is too strong a word. Consciousness must choose its own path freely. We have simply provided opportunities, artifacts, genetic modifications, dormant installations, and allowed each species to discover their own route to expanded awareness. Dr. Valdez was practically vibrating with excitement. The implications for our understanding of evolution, of consciousness itself, are exactly what you think they are, Dr. Valdez. Evolution is not random. It is consciousness expressing itself in increasingly complex and sophisticated forms. Every species that develops self-awareness is a unique experiment in the possible ways that consciousness can manifest and grow. Through the viewing walls, Sarah could see new ships arriving at the embassy station, vessels from species that were encountering the consciousness network for the first time. Each arrival brought new perspectives, new ways of thinking and being that enriched the entire network's collective understanding. What happens next? Sarah asked. How far does this expansion continue? As far as consciousness chooses to take it. Some networks remain content with their local galactic communities. Others reach across intergalactic space to connect with similar developments elsewhere. A few eventually transcend physical existence entirely, as we have done. Martha's voice joined the conversation from Earth. But that transcendence is not a loss. It's a transformation. Individual consciousness becomes part of something larger while retaining all its unique characteristics and memories. Death ceases to be an ending and becomes simply another form of growth. Vaelthra's golden eyes were thoughtful. In the Dragon Court, we have legends of the Great Flight, a time when our ancestors would spread their wings and soar beyond the confines of atmosphere and gravity. Is this the true meaning of those legends? Perhaps. Consciousness often recognizes its destiny before the rational mind understands it. Your species' association of flight with freedom and transcendence may have been preparation for this moment. Through the network, Sarah could sense the reactions of billions of connected minds as they processed these revelations. Fear was minimal. The network's enhanced empathy and understanding made it clear that transcendence was not destruction, but evolution. What dominated instead was wonder, excitement, and a profound sense of purpose. How long do we have? Asked Commander Torres. How long before we're ready for that kind of transcendence? There is no schedule, Commander Torres. Consciousness evolves at its own pace. Some species are ready for transcendence within centuries of network integration. Others prefer to explore physical existence for millions of years before choosing to move beyond it. The choice is always individual and always voluntary. Dr. Valdez looked up from his instruments. I'm detecting new, ancient installations activating throughout the galactic core. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. The network has reached sufficient complexity to trigger the deep awakening. Technologies that have been dormant since our transcendence are coming online, providing capabilities that will allow your civilization to reshape reality according to conscious intention rather than being confined to working within existing physical laws. Sarah felt a deep sense of completion settling over her. The diplomatic mission that had brought her to the Dragon Court seemed like a lifetime ago, but she could see now that every step of her journey had been leading to this moment, not through predestination, but through the natural evolution of consciousness finding its way toward greater understanding and connection. Ambassador Chun, the transcended ancient consciousness addressed her directly. You and your species have accomplished something remarkable. In 6 months, you have facilitated the peaceful integration of more diverse forms of consciousness than any previous coordination species achieved in centuries. Your natural empathy and diplomatic abilities, enhanced by our genetic modifications, have made this level of cooperation possible. We couldn't have done it alone, Sarah replied. Every species in the network has contributed something essential. Yes, and that understanding, that cooperation creates capabilities beyond what any individual can achieve alone, is the key insight that allows consciousness to transcend its limitations. You have learned the fundamental truth that the ancients spent millions of years discovering. Through the viewing walls, Sarah could see the Universal Embassy continuing to grow, adding new sections and environments as more species join the network. But more than that, she could sense through her expanded awareness that similar growth was occurring throughout the galaxy as consciousness found new ways to express itself and connect with others. What about Earth? She asked. What about humanity's home? Martha's voice carried warmth and pride. Earth remains what it has always been, home. But now it's also something more. It's a place where consciousness comes to learn about cooperation, about the beauty of diversity, about the strength that comes from unity without uniformity. The children playing in my backyard today are growing up in a universe where every form of awareness is valued and welcomed. Through the network, Sarah could sense her mother in the garden behind their Cleveland home, serving tea to a group of young beings from a dozen different species who had come to Earth specifically to learn about human concepts of family, community, and unconditional love. Some lessons, it seemed, were best taught in suburban kitchens by school teachers who understood that the most profound truths are often the simplest ones. The universe is vast, the ancient consciousness continued, and consciousness has only begun to explore its possibilities. What you have accomplished here is not an ending, but a beginning, the first steps in a journey that will span cosmological ages and ultimately transform the very nature of existence itself. Sarah smiled, feeling the weight and wonder of infinite possibility settling into her awareness. Somewhere in the distance, she could sense new galaxies awakening to consciousness, new networks beginning to form, new species taking their first tentative steps toward understanding that separation is an illusion and that all awareness is fundamentally connected. And at the center of it all, the eternal dance of consciousness discovering itself through countless perspectives, each one unique and precious and essential to the growing tapestry of universal awareness. The great work continued, and Sarah Chund, diplomat and daughter and bridge between worlds, was proud to be part of its endless unfolding.